So, as Marlene had mentioned, my name is Neil Samtani. I am going to be helping in moderating the session this evening. If we can kick off quickly with a quick show of hands, who over here feels that corporations based in Gibraltar should be doing a little bit more in helping us to protect our environment? Quick show of hands. Wonderful. And who feels that the government should be doing a little bit more in raising the profile of the environmental agenda? The hands are going up. That's fantastic. And who feel that that us, members of our community, should be doing a little bit more in helping us to protect our environment? Yeah, that's pretty overwhelming. It is clear that the environmental agenda is a subject of great importance. As Marlene had just mentioned, it impacts us all, and it's one of our greatest challenges. With the alarm bells of climate change most certainly ringing, we're likely to see dramatic change to our climate during our lifetimes and the negative impacts that brings. That coupled with the risk that we face on a daily basis through our air quality. I mean, there was a statistic of that Gibraltar breached certain thresholds on air quality and the pollutants in our air, and had a significant impact on our health, leading to Gibraltar's rate of respiratory disease being 2.5 times higher than the EU mean. So we had the worst rate of incidence of respiratory disease in all of Europe. Now, we have to face these challenges head on, but we have to do so in an economically sustainable manner. We have the other great challenge of our time, that of Brexit, fast looming. So whatever approach that we take has to keep in mind the economic impacts. Now, what we notice is that there tends to be a sense of ambivalence by parties when it comes to meeting our environmental challenges. And that is a shame, because we have this wonderful natural resource with our environment and our marine ecosystem. Now, what we have seen is, while the current administration has made some steps towards helping us move forward, we have seen successive parties come into power and fail to deliver a renewable energy agenda. Now, while that is the case, we have seen some great work being done through community action groups. I mean, the Nautilus Project is a great example of raising awareness of our marine ecosystem and working with local companies to phase out the use of single-use plastic bags. We've also seen other groups like the Rotary Club and on Facebook, Pollution Watch Gibraltar. And we're fortunate to have Marilis, one of the founders of Pollution Watch Gibraltar, in the audience today. But they do a wonderful job of raising awareness of our air quality and lobbying the government for greater transparency. So we believe that corporate social responsibility and accountability are going to be instrumental in helping us to meet these challenges. So now I'll tell you a little bit about Together Gibraltar's involvement here. Together Gibraltar, the movement, is a civic-minded movement. We feel that through open discussion, open debate, we're able to start the discussion and hopefully introduce change. And we do so through facilitating and encouraging that debate in sessions such as today's. So following today's session, we hope to arrive at a set of actionable outcomes, as Marlene had said. And Marlene and the team should be able to collate those outcomes and take it to Parliament, so that the debate we have here today can meet our legislative debate. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We're very fortunate today to have 3 great panelists. We have next to me Luis Stagnetto, who's a co-founder of the Nautilus Project, an NGO focused on raising awareness of marine issues, and a PhD student at the University of Gibraltar. We have Dr. Rafael Jimenez, who is a full-time professor at the University of Cadiz and teaches the Masters in Alternative Energies program. And we have Leanne Armstrong-Emery, who is a former politician who ran with the UK Green Party in 2014 for a seat on the EU Parliament, and a founder of Friends of the Earth.
That's right.
Yeah. Excellent. What I'll do now is I'll just hand over to Lewis. Lewis, if you wouldn't mind saying a few words about what you've been doing in the environmental space.
Before I start, I'm aware that there are a lot of people at the back and I can't quite... Would you prefer it if I stood up? Yes. Yeah, okay. Right, well that settles that one. Okay. So I'm one of the co-founders of the Nautilus project. My wife is sitting at the front, and she's the other one. I studied marine biology at university. The environment and the marine environment has always been a very important thing with me in my life. Throughout my childhood, I was an avid snorkeler, and I spent a lot of time in the sea. On coming back to Gibraltar, I spent a lot of time looking at our marine environment, trying to analyse what the main problems that we have are. Bunkering and the increase of it and the activities of it is an obvious first answer. Pollution is another one. Plastic is a very big thing on our coastline, as it is globally. It's not something that we just have to isolate to Gibraltar. There wouldn't be any ream of things to look out for without climate change being in it, and of course climate change is something that will affect our coastline. The other one is air quality. Not all that well known, but the exchange between the ocean and the air is well understood by science, and so the poorer quality that there is in the atmosphere, the worse quality you can get underwater because of that gaseous exchange, and of course that affects the marine environment too. So of those, in my opinion, I think plastic is the greatest issue, and I hope to convince you of that this evening. So to start off with, plastic is formed, extracted from crude oil. It can be done through natural gases too. Essentially you get ethane, and you end up making these long man-made polymers. It's carbon and hydrogen. I don't really want to go into chemistry because not everyone's a chemist, but these structures are very hard to break down. Unlike natural products, things like wood, cardboard, that we can produce through paper, these long chains become very, very hard to break down. Now, there are some man-made efforts to do that. Biodegradable plastic is one of them. And what they do is they inject iron or they inject cobalt into the chains. And this allows these chains to be broken down into smaller parts. The bacteria, the whole part of biodegrade, from the environment, the bacteria degrade, break down these chains. The idea is that the chains start to break down initially with the biodegradable plastic, and then the bacteria can get to work. Unfortunately, the evidence on that doesn't seem to support that it works, and we might discuss that later in the discussion part. However, these molecules take a very long time to break down. Wood and cardboard can take 2 or 3 months to break down, whilst if you look at products like a fishing line, nylon fishing line, you're talking about 600 years. If you're looking at a plastic water bottle, it's 450 years. These are exponentially larger timescales. And some of the science that has come out actually suggests that this stuff doesn't disappear at all. That all that happens is that you halve the amount, and you halve the amount again, and you halve the amount again, and you always get closer to zero, but you never actually break up the product at all. Now, there are 2 lines of evidence, but at the moment, I think it's better to play safe. So how does this end up working out in the environment? Well, quite simply, these products are disposed of. A lot of the time it's single-use products. Plastic is a very durable material because it doesn't biodegrade, and so what happens is that the same property that makes it attractive to us is also the property that's causing the problem. It ends up in the marine environment over time breaking down into smaller and smaller bits. The macroplastics, the bottles, the plastic bags, the nylon rope, the nylon fishing line, all of these things are breaking down. And they break down into smaller and smaller constituent parts until eventually the biology starts to feed on it. Now, I'll let that sink in a second, because we've got problems with turtles feeding on plastic bags. We've got problems with fish eating microbeads from exfoliating creams, from whitening toothpaste, etc. And this stuff is entering the food chain. The problem with that is that in the process of making plastic, we inject all these other chemicals, and one of them is called bisphenol A. This is sometimes referred to as BPA, in the short abbreviation. But this is a carcinogen. This has health implications. And when we are top of the food chain, the bioaccumulation of these chemicals is working its way, and it's concentrating at the top of the food web. And we are the top of the food web. So it's concentrating in us. For those of you that don't say, oh, but I don't eat fish. The irrigation systems on vegetables and fruits are made out of plastic piping. It's not something that we can easily escape. Bottled water, more often than not, our bottled water comes in plastic. And the ultimate irony for me in all of this is that when we go to supermarkets, sometimes we buy bottled water that is in a plastic bottle that is wrapped in a 6-pack in plastic, and then we take it to the counter, and because it's so heavy, we need to double bag it. So think of all the disposable plastic that is just waste, right? Because we're not using most of that plastic, we're not reusing any of it, and it's just getting discarded. Going to landfill, if it's not recycled, ends up in the... this stuff doesn't biodegrade, as we said, but it ends up, these chemicals leach into our rivers, and our rivers end up flowing into the sea. So it all gets back to the same place anyway, and then back to us eventually. There are lots and lots of examples that I could give on this. Fishing line, only this summer, we've had cases of spider crabs, a protected species in Gibraltar, entangled in nylon fishing line. I mean, how ironic is that? You're not allowed to fish it, but the fishing gear that we're using is killing the crab off because it's completely entangled. Plastic bags floating in the marine environment. I'm a snorkeler, I'm in the water all the time. There are pictures from the dolphin safari. If you check those out on Facebook, dolphins playing with plastic. Umpteen examples of this type of activity. And unlike climate change, this is something that is very easy to fix. I'm not standing here telling you that that if we switch to paper, the whole world is going to be better, because it's not. It's my initial idea of how to move forward. The whole idea of having this discussion is that perhaps there are members in this audience that have a better idea than I can ever come up with, and I'm open to listening to those ideas and seeing what you think might be a better way of taking this forward. But my initial idea is that at paper, if we were to switch back to paper, at least paper biodegrades. This is something that we can continue using, and even if we don't change too much of our lifestyle, even if we throw it into the marine environment, it's not going to kill animals, it's not going to intoxicate the food chain, and it won't come back to haunt us in the same way that plastic is. Finally, really, we spoke at the beginning, we mentioned how the emphasis on government and on corporations to make these changes. And I think sometimes this is the problem that we have with things like climate change. We're also really kind of dependent on big government decisions in order to make this happen. And I think that's the wrong focus, especially with plastic, because it only takes a very small change, and very incremental change in our lives to say, look, I'm not going to select this product, I'm going to select the one next to it. It might cost me a bit more, but over time that price will come down, which will actually start to make a difference. And you will drive the change that will make the difference, and it will pass on a cleaner environment and a healthier environment, certainly in the case of the marine environment, onto our children. And I think that's very important. So I won't take any more of your time. Thank you for listening, and I'm very open and willing to take your questions.
Good evening. I'd like to start off by just giving you a little bit of background of my political career and my environmental sort of awareness, let's say. My interest in the very broad sense of politics started when I was about 14, when I became aware of all the social injustices that I saw around me in school and, of course, socially. I became interested in, obviously, human rights and things like that. So when I went to study in the university in UK, I followed that on through the student union, and that carried forward into my workplace when I became a very active trade unionist for many, many years. And in 1970, a general election was called in the UK. I was only 17, so I couldn't vote. But I decided that I would take it upon myself to read all the manifestos And I decided that the party that best matched my ideas was the Liberal Party. In the next general election was called in 1974, and I was able to vote at that time. I thought, again, that I should take the time and trouble to read the manifestos again, just in case I'd made a mistake. But I actually decided that my original decision that I made was the right one, and the Liberal Party was the one I gave my vote to. And I have, in fact, been a Liberal for most of my adult life. My personal interest in environmental issues didn't actually start until the mid-70s, and it was mainly triggered by Greenpeace. They launched an expedition to prevent the massacre of pups, seal pups, in Newfoundland. And this was followed by the Greenham Common Women's Peace Camp, which some of you may remember, who organised an anti-nuclear demonstration in London in October 1983. I then decided to read more about it, and I found information on Friends of the Earth, which I think, in my opinion, covered all the areas that I was interested in. I decided to return to Gibraltar with my family in 1987, and I entered frontline politics in the 90s. And I must say that at that time, environment and environmental issues really wasn't spoken very much about. It is true to say that there were many individuals locally that had been raising their concerns on environmental matters since the 70s, and many of them had in fact been members of Greenpeace and CND and Friends of the Earth. So it wasn't that I just came here and there was no one. There were many people who were interested in that. I suppose that I would say that environmental issues became more of a public interest through an awareness, through politically by myself in ILF and the Reform Party, but also with an NGO, the Environmental Safety Group, or the ESG, who launched in 2000 at the same time. Thankfully, the environment is now on the general political agenda, and I think that the public, particularly the youth, now understand the importance that it has for us all. I left frontline politics in 2004, and in 2005 I founded the local branch of Friends of the Earth, and I suppose I must have stayed as coordinator until about 2009-2010. In May 2011, I rejoined the local Liberal Party executive, where I still am. I would classify myself politically now as a Green, or Liberal Green I should say, and I am affiliated to the Green Liberal Democrats in the UK. During all these past years, both in and out of politics, I have observed how the various governments have always prioritised anything related to finances, legislation, practices that affects the finance centre, gaming companies, passport insurance, high net worth individuals and so on, has been upgraded to meet all the standards required by the UK and Europe. And of course this is very necessary because it is a vital part of our economy, and I would say one of the pillars of our economy. Unfortunately, it does mean that other areas of equal importance are left lagging behind. For example, we have a Town Planning Act of 1999, a Building Development Control Plan of 2001, a Development Plan of 2009, which is not quite enshrined in law, but it's more of a guide. It would be wrong of me to say that nothing has changed, because there have, of course, been amendments and improvements over the years, and I'm sure that we will see some more in the future. One of these specific areas which have been improved is the fact that we now have a DPC with open plan meetings that the public can attend to. And also, I'm sure that when the new Town Planning Act is enacted, a lot of the current issues will be dealt with by it. Another one of the acts being reviewed at the moment, which I understand will be imminent, that's the Heritage Act. I do believe that a lot has been achieved locally with regards to environmental matters since 2011, particularly because of the Minister John Cortes, who is a long-standing environmentalist and was a very active NGO before entering politics. He is really committed to a green environmental agenda, and he has a team of very highly qualified specialist staff working with him. I have seen great improvements everywhere. One example, again, is that there is a heritage and environmental filter. So any decisions taken has to go through these two filters to see what impact it will have in these areas. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it takes time to change systems, but more importantly, attitudes. And I know that these are being currently reviewed, and the changes are trying to be made in the various departments and ministries. Patience is not one of my virtues. It never has been. So I would like to see things done yesterday, but as I said, it takes time to implement a lot of legislation and changes that are required. I'm here tonight because I wanted to highlight two specific things. The first is the amount of developments, the type of developments, and the developers themselves. And of course, the second is the number of vehicles in Gibraltar, which has been touched upon. Gibraltar needs inward investment and developments in order to strengthen the economy. And I think it is right for government to encourage this, as ultimately a strong economy means that we will our quality of life will be improved with things such as housing, education, healthcare, and so on. But I do think that we should have a long-term development plan for Gibraltar, which clearly identifies areas for development. Marinas that will always be marinas, sea area that will be potentially for reclamation of land, green and open areas, and so on. In other words, a long-term vision beyond the 4-year terms of any government, a safeguard. Gibraltar has little available land or sea that we can reclaim, and in order to progress, unfortunately, we will have to build upwards rather than outwards. But in doing so, we need to take care of how we go about this. We need to ensure that the developments have the infrastructure required, and also that the developers take into consideration the quality of life of the people living around. I would say that developers and architects need to think more outside the box and come up with more sustainable buildings. A lot more thought is needed on the materials used in these buildings and their suitability to our local weather. For example, the type of glass used in buildings, the distances between the buildings, is natural ventilation being looked at or provided for, or will there be a need for an increased fuel consumption as the demand for air conditioning is required? Developers seek to maximize their profits, and therefore they want to use every possible inch of land, which of course on our rock is at a premium. But why not incorporate, for example, indoor gardens or green roofs? I believe that governments around the world should be encouraging investments in high-performance green building using energy efficiency measures that will reduce the impact of climate change, it will improve business performance, and will preserve and provide quality of life for us all. And I believe that Gibraltar could and should be a showcase of high-performance green buildings. Developers need to understand, because I think sometimes they think that they can't make money out of it, that huge profits can be made with green buildings, and their business will improve. Commercial owners, operators, and tenants will see tangible economic benefits, long-term, obviously, such as improved comfort, lower operating costs, healthier environmental quality. Lower energy use, for example, will give them a competitive edge and will also increase the return on their investment when they build up. I mean, we have a specific problem in Gibraltar with damp, particularly in the older buildings. And many people locally have health issues which are related to this. But through the use of moisture control detailing measures, pollution and contamination rejection strategies, and providing well-thought-out natural ventilation procedures, the buildings would be healthier for its occupants. By building green or greening existing buildings, the value of the properties will increase and the liability risk will be reduced. And I'd just like to give you some examples of some green buildings. For example, in the German Reichstag Parliament, they have a glass dome there, and their building system, the energy system, is based upon a mix of solar energy, geothermal power, combined heat and power, biofuel generators, and innovative ventilation. Basically, in the summer, the geothermal installation cools the buildings in the summer and provides heat in the winter. And their emissions, the annual CO2 emissions, are reduced from 7,000 to less than 1,000 tons. So, it makes a big difference. There is a housing project in Australia called K2, and these are the most environmental sustainable public housing development in Australia. The apartment complex uses only renewable energy and has a lifespan up to 200 years. It is made partially of recycled timber and employs rainwater harvesting, grey water reuse, solar water heating, and photovoltaic panels. According to the government statistics, their apartments use 55% less electricity, 46% less gas, and 53% less water than conventional apartments. The Al Bahar Towers in Abu Dhabi were built with a sort of very thin sort of sheath of glass, obviously not appropriate for 120 degrees Fahrenheit that it can become in summer. So what the architects did was they created what they call the Mashrabiya facade, which incorporates traditional Arabian architecture because they're geometric patterns. And it's a screen that includes over 1,000 elements that contract and expand. It's quite fascinating to watch, depending upon the position of the sun during the day. In England, in London, the Gherkin Swiss RE building, which was the first eco-friendly skyscraper, the building uses energy-saving methods which allow it to use half the power that a similar tower would typically consume. There are gaps in each floor that create 6 shafts that serve as a natural ventilation system. And in the summer, the shaft pulls the warm air out of the building, and then they warm the building in the winter with passive solar heating. And the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, again, the architects there designed the school with thousands of small sandblasted circles which are affixed to a central rod, and based on the humidity and the temperature inside the building, the rods pivot automatically to facilitate or block the flow of air through the facade. So with this in mind, I would like to encourage local developers and architects to take the time to incorporate more green sustainable features in their designs, and therefore improve the quality of life of the people that will be living and working in their buildings, but also for the people living in the surrounding areas. And I'm sure that government would give some sort of incentive, I should say governments would give some sort of incentive to the developers to ensure that they build green. Finally, we come to the issue of the number of cars and congestion in Gibraltar. Now, in May 2011, the then government introduced a free bus service for many routes for local residents. And this was further improved with new routes by the present government. And in March this year, 2017, they produced a document which I think is excellent, which is a sustainable traffic transport and parking plan. And it covers all the areas that I want to see addressed, and yet we still have an ever-increasing amount of cars. I mean, we're virtually walking distance away from everywhere we need, and yet many of us insist on driving. I walk everywhere, or I take the bus, and I find it quite nice to be able to see people and talk to them on my way to my destination. But what can actually be done? Well, the way forward is obviously by reducing overall car use, while still allowing people to maintain their current lifestyles by ensuring that they can have access to a car when necessary. By moving away from the present situation of most families who have one car, and in Gibraltar, even more per household, to one where they can have the benefits of, as I said, of access to a car when they need it, but also by encouraging them to use other forms of transportation, walking, bicycles, buses, and so on. And in this way, people will be able to make decisions that will benefit their health, and it will benefit their finances and also the environment. It's a re-education of us. We need to be, and our minds need to change, and we need to see how best we can go about improving our lives. Some of the ideas which are happening in other countries, for example, the UK, are introducing car clubs, neighbourhood car rental schemes, car sharing, and an even more interesting one, which is pay-as-you-go insurance, which I'll tell you a little bit about. I was delighted to see just recently that the DPC was insisting on a car sharing scheme in one of the new proposed developments, and I would certainly encourage more of that. That's the new one that they're going to build at the Marina Bay at the end. They've made that one of the conditions that they have a car sharing scheme. And the pay-as-you-go insurance is basically very much like we pay as we go on mobile telephones. There would be like a basic charge of, 30, 40 pounds. And when you decide that you want to use the car, you then pay for the miles that you use on top of that amount of money, which I think is brilliant, because it means that people who may not use their cars very frequently would still be able to access cars when they require it, and at the same time not have to pay the costs that you would normally assume by owning a car or having to pay that. In conclusion, I've tried to offer what I think are some constructive and positive alternatives to assist us all in ensuring that our quality of life continues to be enhanced and maintained. And I hope you think these schemes are worthy of consideration and debate. Thank you very much for listening to me.
I would like to give my thanks to the organization for the invitation. I believe I give my presentation in Spanish, but after the presentation I changed directly to English, direct translation. Well, the topics of renewable energy is very large topics. What is the aspect for speak today here? We can speak about techniques aspects, regulation aspects, sustainable aspects, all as related in renewable energy. My colleague in the roundtable speak about the buildings, sustainability, new concepts in the architecture is very important. Normally, all people forget the very ancient techniques in build the different buildings. For example, the Arab culture give to all people in Spain, in Gibraltar, in all the peninsula. I don't remember what is in English the word.
Peninsula.
Okay, peninsula, the same. Perfect. Why the village are in white colors? Is a new wave or not? It's physics, pure physics. You speak about the building with a lot of glass in Arab countries. This is a mad, crazy situation. For example, today, in November, we have a cooling system. What happened? What happened? It's not normal. Of course. In these rooms, for example, if the windows can be opened and interchange the air, maybe enough to reduce the ambient high temperature and interchange the relative humidity. Here we are a lot of heating systems, and we have two other characteristics are dioxide carbon emissions. We need to interchange the air, not put the cooler system. This is not sustainable style of life. It's normal in our world. Sorry. Was necessary. This is the future. Reduce the temperature. Reduce the energy consumption. Well,
Hot air.
of course, all world live today in a crazy climatic and energy situation. The climatic change is real. Perhaps Trump says other things.
He always does.
When Trump says other things, normally the truth is the opposite. In energy, at least in energy topics. Well, in our area, we have three main energy sources: sun, wind, and the sea. We have other sources. For example, the field agriculture, because give a lot of biomass. The biomass in Andalusia is a very important energy source. But in Cádiz is not the most important. The most important in Cádiz is the wind power. We have in the Cádiz province, we have the generation of more than 24% of the all energy, electric energy in Andalusia. It's a very important percentage. And in Cádiz province, we have 73 wind farms. This is a lot of power. The total power installed in Cádiz province only with wind power is 1,309 megawatts of power. It's a very large power. Spain has in total maybe the second country in the world in wind power installed. The wind power is a very developed energy. It's a very not young technology, it's an adult technology. It's commercial and can introduce in the market in the same condition or in the best condition than other traditional sources, as coal, as petroleum, as natural gas. This is the problem in the world. This is the problem in Spain. When the energy sources from renewable aspects go ahead, improve the quantity of power, the market is not quite. It's a problem because the business is the business. And the renewable energy can give a lot of money or don't give, because the main company in Spain see the renewable as a competitor. This is the truth. In Spain, Germany, USA, of course, United Kingdom too, and Gibraltar. Maybe a problem. The business and the renewable energy are not very good friends. The great business, of course, because the renewable energy can give a local development, because required a lot of small companies, local small companies, and give a good opportunity for improve the local development. It's very important, this aspect, because the renewable energy is a good strategy for a sustainable development of the country, of the areas. Local energy, local uses, local economical development. This situation is not good for a great company, multinational company. Remember. Well, about the solar energy, the south of Europe, Spain and Gibraltar, has a lot of radiation. The unique problem is what is the strategy for develop the application. We require space, but if the philosophy for solar development is large plant, is not for Gibraltar, of course. In my opinion, depend of the kind of solar application. For example, PV application, photovoltaic application, can use in large installation or decentralized installation. Decentralized generation now is a main line of development of the renewable energy in Europe. In my opinion, this strategy is very good for Gibraltar, Cadiz, all towns. Building and energy together. The new concept is building with zero emissions. This is the concept. We need to produce our energy in the same place of the uses. This is the concept. If we need transport for the power lines, electric power lines, this is a problem because it requires a lot of infrastructure, and we have a lot of losses of energy in the wire, a lot. In the total grid, power grid in Spain, more or less, our losses may be 12–15% of the total electric energy in the country. It's a lot. In a city, for example, Gibraltar, the losses in the line power distribution is very high. In the transformer, very high. You can feel heat very close to the power transformer. It's dangerous, of course, if the distance is very close. This heat means losses. If I produce the energy in the same place of the uses, this is the best options, the optimal situation. This is the concept of decentralized energy generation. This is the way in all the world. The solar technology, we have different applications. In Cadiz Province, we have 2 great plants of thermosolar energy. Thermosolar means a great installation working in high temperature with cylinder parabolic collectors. It's high concentrations. In solar means the concentration, if without concentration is 1 sun, normal situation. Double sun, 2 suns, concentration 2. In this plant, the concentration may be more or less 500 suns. In this kind of installation. In other thermosolar, for example, in Sevilla, we have the first commercial central tower plant in Sanlúcar la Mayor. This plant has a concentration for near of 800 or 1,000 suns. All mirrors concentrate the radiation in only one point. In this point, the conversion from the radiation to heat and after to steam and after a turbine. The difference between the coal or, for example, the plant in Gibraltar with diesel is the primary energy. The cycle, for example, coal plants as Los Barrios, from the boiler is the same process. It's a thermal cycle, Rankine cycle. The difference, no carbon, no boiler, only sun and mirrors. Well, this plant has 50 megawatts each. In total, 100 megawatts in 2 plants. The problem of the sun is very, very, very easy. In the day, we have a sun. In the night, we have not sun. It's obvious. This is a great problem. No continuous energy sources. What is the problem? We need storage systems. All systems for storage energy are a problem because the efficiency of the system is not very good. And if the energy is more high, we need a special storage system. For a mobile phone, we have a lot of very good batteries, lithium-ion. But with this quantity of energy, we need other systems. For example, stones, heat stones, oils, mineral oils, and the energy is stored as change of phase of the material. It's physics. During the change of phase, the temperature is the same, but the energy can improve with the same temperature. In this plant, we have 7.5 hours per day of storage autonomy. It's very important because the most important consume is in the night. This is the problem between the coincidence between curve of generation and curve of consume. For all energy, stochastic energies, the majority of the renewable are stochastic energies. What means stochastic energy? What is the sun energy for tomorrow? Somebody know? More or less, but not exactly. For planning the energy generation, we need know if the day is cloudy or sunny. No, it's not enough. How many watts per square meter we have? At 9, at 10, at 11 a.m. each hour per day. This is the problem. Because the generation need know what is the Q of production. If not, we have a great problem in the grid. Other energy, for example, biomass, is not a stochastic energy. We can storage energy as organic wastes. Biogas can be stored as biogas. Biogas, all people know what is biogas. Biogas mainly is methane.
Methane, yeah.
Mainly, not only, mainly, depend of the wastes. If the origin is very organic wastes, good for the biogas, not good for the environment. For the biogas, it's very good. Normally, the percentage of methanol is in between 60 or 70%. The other, carbon dioxide, nitrogen is a problem in biogas, and others. Well, continue with the solar. Thermal solar, high temperature. Low temperature for solar application is for water heating to use in our houses, in some industries. Low temperature is until 100 degrees centigrade, not Fahrenheit. We need use. It's not a problem with the language. It's required for all scientific and technician community, the international system. These applications are for buildings. We need heating water every day for shower, for washing our hands. Normal life, I hope. And this is a very good technology. It's nice. It's nice. That is a very high testing technology along of a lot of years. When the installation for low temperature is large, for example, for hospitals, the hospital require a lot of hot water. The sport installation require a lot of hot water. If the installation is large, it's required a very specific and specialized engineering for design. It's a complex system because it's a thermal, hydraulic, and very hot pipes. And every day the sun is different. The performance of the installation can be very different between one day and the other day. And the photovoltaic technology. The photovoltaic technology let to everybody produce electric energy, directly in electric energy. It's a direct conversion from the radiation from the sun to electric energy. Only for electric energy. Some people think I can put a photovoltaic and use a electric boiler. Crazy. For heating, gas or solar thermal. Never electricity. This is a bad uses of the energy. It's not very nice for the sustainability. Heating from gas or from solar thermal. Never electric energy. The electric energy is very, very nice kind of energy for using other uses, not for heating. Well, the photovoltaic let to everybody use a little installation or a large installation. It's very linear, the cost. Now, in the global market, the cost of the panels is very cheap. The situation is really very good. 5 or 7 years ago, the cost of the panel was 5 or 7 times of the price today. This is the good opportunity now for investment in installation, small, medium, and large. It's a good position. The cost of the photovoltaic installation was mainly the cost of the panels. Now, the cost of the inverters, or in the case of the standalone application, the batteries. The batteries are very high cost. I think in Gibraltar, only the application must be to grid connected. Use the grid as storage. Well, in Cádiz province, we have installed 73 megawatts of photovoltaic plants. It's not our main energy application from renewable sources. In Spain, we have more than 6,000 megawatts with photovoltaics. The problem, solar, in the night energy, in the day energy, in the night without energy.
Storage.
We need storage or use the grid as help with the photovoltaic generation. If we use batteries, the cost is very high and the sustainable aspects are not very clear because the battery now used in photovoltaics are the acid and lead. It's not very nice for the sustainable. The new generation of battery use lithium ion, like the mobile. The electric cars use lithium ion. It's very nice battery, but today not very cheap. In the very close future, I'm sure, with the development of the electric car, the price, the cost of the ion, great large ion battery come down, I'm sure. This is the moment. Well, the potential to cover all our rooftop in all our buildings with photovoltaics, this is a good opportunity. Decentralizing generation, cover the rooftop of the building, reduce the energy charge from the sun, reduce the cooler system, protect the building, and give energy. Why not use photovoltaic in the building?
So
Why not?
a question on that. In an urban environment, historic urban environment with a conservation area in the rock, we don't have much space. Should we be looking at a blend? And if so, what sort of blend should we be saying, well, this much fossil fuels, this much solar?
Well, if you use the photovoltaic over the building, no problem with the environment. No problem. If you use photovoltaic in the field, maybe a problem. I am a worker of the photovoltaic for more than 30 years. And I believe not in all situations we can use all energy, renewable or not. In each case, you need to use the correct solution. Urban area, photovoltaics. Natural environment, you can use photovoltaic for a specific application in different points, but not in a large installation. It's very crazy if you your option is cut trees for put solar energy.
I can hear calls for questions. Would you like to?
I need more time. When this is a round table. In conclusion, imagination to power. For example, building zero emission with photovoltaics and very little windmills. Two options. Gibraltar needs a complex study because the rock is a problem with the sun and with the wind. What is the point for very good interesting? If you put photovoltaic panels in the shadow, it's a great problem.
Yes.
For the people see this crazy situation. No, it's not good. Electric cars, the pollution is a great problem in all the world, in Gibraltar too, of course. We can use charge station with renewable energies. If you use electric car and you need electric for the traditional grid with liquid gas, carbon, what is the solution? You need, all people need green electricity for the electric cars. You can use for grid connected application, electric cars, building zero emissions, and the open demand. Okay? And the government needs a new regulation to give energy to the challenges. If all people in the world change the energy uses, the world change, of course.
Thank you, Fatima.
Thank you.